Hey everyone, it's December 20th, and that means that if today's your birthday, you share with Australian serial killer Sarah Jane Makin, who murdered more than a dozen babies in Australia in the late 1800s, and that is her right over there. Born in Sydney in 1845, Makin was the daughter of a former convict, as were many people in Australia at that time, and had a brief marriage to a sailor before meeting and marrying John Makin in 1871. They eventually had 10 children, 5 daughters and 5 sons, and John worked delivering beer for a brewery until he was convicted of theft and locked up himself for 3 months. He then found employment delivering groceries, but after an accident left him unable to work, the couple turned to baby farming to pay the bills. This was the practice of taking in children for a fee, often for unwed women when it was considered scandalous to have a baby out of wedlock. The goal was to find wealthy families who couldn't have children of their own and sell the babies to them. In 1892, the Makins responded to a classified ad seeking someone to take in a baby in exchange for child support expenses. They accepted an upfront payment of £3 and picked up the child, collecting 10 shillings per week from the mother, while finding a way to avoid letting her see the kid. When the mother went to their home in McDonaldtown to try and see her child, she found that the Makins had moved. Since it was McDonaldtown and not McDonaldland, she couldn't call on Mayor McCheese for help. But a few weeks later, a worker was digging a trench to install a new sewer line at their old home and found the remains of 2 dead babies. The police were called, and they quickly arrested John and Sarah Makin along with 4 of their daughters who allegedly assisted in their scheme. Investigators dug up the yards of 11 homes they had lived in over the previous 2 years, finding at least 15 corpses. In 1893, the couple went on trial for murder, with their daughters turning witnesses for the prosecution rather than being charged themselves. Both were sentenced to death by hanging, with the judge saying, "You took money from the mother of this child. You beguiled her with promises which you never meant to perform and which you never did perform, having determined on the death of the child. You deceived her as to your address, and you endeavored to make it utterly fruitless that any search should be made, and finally, in order to make detection impossible, as you thought, having bereft it of life, you buried this child in your yard as you would the carcass of a dog." Sarah's sentence was commuted to life in prison with hard labor, and John attempted to appeal his sentence, saying to the court that the baby farming was her idea and that she was a terrible woman, known to have a temper more like a fiend than a woman. His appeal fell on deaf ears, and he was hanged in 1893. After her daughters campaigned for her release, Sarah Makin was released in 1911, having spent 19 years behind bars. She died a free woman 7 years later in 1918. The Makins raised the profile of the problem of baby farming in Australia, which had recently passed the Children's Protection Act in 1892 to regulate persons taking care of children for money. Sarah Makin was featured on the Discovery Channel series Deadly Women in 2009. If this is your birthday, I hope you have a great day. Leave me a comment so I can wish you a happy birthday. If you know someone whose birthday it is today, send them this video so I can find out all about their birthday twin. And to Sarah Jane Makin, I say, happy birthday, you bastard.